Prestaya Bhutale Shimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Asyagadeshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Are there persons present that may not have been present for the previous two or three, whatever it was been? So you like a little review? Okay. As you see on the screen, this is chapter 5. So yesterday we finished chapter 4. And chapter 4, the topic was Nishtha. Nishtha means steadiness, or steady, or fixed, resolute, unshakable. Where bhakti has become sufficiently strong by the prior stages, bhajana, kriya, anartha, nivritti. And several things. The verse in the Bhagavatam that corresponds with this verse, chapter 4, is Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 18, which follows Text 17. So Text 18 is Nishtaprayeshu Abhadreshu. In Text 17, it also speaks of Abhadras. Abhadra is inauspicious things, subtle things, inauspicious things that are within. And those inauspicious things that are within, there's another term that corresponds with abhadras, and that's anartha. The inauspicious things are unwanted. Artha, something wanted. Anartha, something not wanted. So there's some things that are not wanted within, because specifically they block bhakti, like clouds in the sky block the sun. Welcome to Portland. Lots of rain comes from clouds. Clouds block the sun. It's been nice and sunny the last couple of days. But clouds block the sun. So similarly, the abhadras or anarthas block the power of bhakti. And we heard where they come from. There are 4 sources. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur indicates 1, 2, 3, 4. Unwanted things within the heart that are the result of past sins. Unwanted things within the heart that are the byproduct of past piety. So fruits of piety are not problem, but trying to be the enjoyer of the fruits of piety is a problem. Because the enjoying spirit blocks the power of bhakti. The separate enjoyment spirit blocks the power of bhakti. The third source is bhakti successfully performed is a problem, can be a problem, because bhakti that's successfully performed, one gets some recognition, some honor, some distinction, labha, puja, pratishta, and then one may want to be the enjoyer of those things. position, success, honor, title, facilities because you're a successful bhakta. So it's not don't be successful in bhakti or don't do pious activities because it's a problem. Trying to be the enjoyer of those things, that's the problem. And he explains that those can be overcome by bhakti itself. However, more difficult to remove is the abhadras or unwanted things that arise from offense. And the chief of those offenses is offending the sadhu, because it's through the sadhu that one even begins bhakti or makes further progress in bhakti. So don't offend sadhus, please. And one of the effects of offense is that which is, in what is the cause and the effect. That which is spiritual is not seen as spiritual. That which is spiritual is seen as something material. And therefore, seen as material, I don't have the proper regard, the due respect for that which is not material, which further involves one in the material energy. So there's this whole detailed description of anartha vritti, particularly anarthas that arise from offense, and what to do if that does happen. And it happens because we make mistakes, and we're dealing with, in bhakti especially, we're dealing with things that are spiritual. And so if we're not careful, and we're not always careful, sometimes we're careful, sometimes we're less careful, there can be some offense. And those unwanted things within that arise from offense, they're more difficult to remove than the other three sources. And then we heard there's a list of 6, and then there's a more subtle list of 5 categories of obstacles to overcome. Not exactly anarthas, but obstacles to overcome. We heard about that, so rather than going through the list. And how to overcome those 5 is not be conscious of the 5. How to overcome the 5 is to be conscious of that which is spiritual, and giving regular, prolonged, attentive effort to the spirituals, particularly the holy name. But we also heard that from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when it speaks of Nama Kirtan, it implies, it's implicit, the other 8, because the other 8 processes are led by, and they follow the lead. They follow the chanting of the holy name, the primary means of achieving elevation, purification, perfection is the chanting of the holy name. So focused effort in nicely is a nice word, attentively, respectfully, with great effort. So we heard that where we ended up was how to evaluate it. Yeah. There's 2 types of steadiness. This nishtha, steadiness from bhakti itself, steadiness from the byproducts of bhakti, and one may become steady as a result of a nice quantity and quality of the byproducts of bhakti, and so steadiness can be assisted by and manifested by not bhakti directly, but that which arises from bhakti. So, the conclusion, summary, was if in order to determine or evaluate if one has achieved that state of steadiness, there's steadiness in the consistency of attention to hearing and chanting and the other expressions of bhakti. And effort versus laxity is the way to move forward, to get on the other side of the unsteadiness to steadiness. I'm curious, in those that attended yesterday's session, during your japa this morning, did any of you remember and take assistance from that nice example of the magnifying glass and the steadiness that comes when you hold your hand steady in the magnifying glass at a certain angle, etc., etc.? You can kindle fire. So just as the light of the sun is fire, but it's diffused, but if you focus it, it can start fire because it's fire. Similarly, the holy name is a powerful energy, and when focused with steadiness, with a steady concentration and effort to be concentrated and not be distracted, then the power of the holy name can be something that you more directly experience. Did anyone remember that during japa this morning and find some benefit from that example? Try it tomorrow morning. It's a very good example, especially if you did the thing with the magnifying glass. And we were all kids, so we all once upon a time probably had a magnifying glass and fiddled with the magnifying glass. So it works. Not sometimes it works. And the chanting of the holy name works most effectively when there's steadiness of investing attention as opposed to inattention or distraction. So that's what a little summary of the Nishtha stage, which follows the Anartha-nivritti and Bhajana Kriya activities. So now we're on the taste. Then when Nishtha is done nicely, then taste may come. Now, I think I wanted to do this. Yeah. Okay. Yesterday I showed a chart that had I made some modifications in the chart. Here's how I made some modifications. It was pointed out that Nishtha said that material aspirations are prominent. So I changed it. They're slight but not prominent. That is to say, there's some residue of material aspiration. There's some residual modes of ignorance, modes of passion. When the mode of goodness, sitvam sattve prasidati, when the mode of goodness becomes established, there's still some traces of ignorance and passion. There's still some traces, slight but not prominent, influence of material affinity. But in Nishtha, the power of bhakti is sufficient that it doesn't act. Those traces, residual traces, generally speaking, don't act. In fact, when Nishtha comes, prior to Nishtha, the Anishtha stage, they may sometimes surface. When an unwanted past tendency like anger or something may come out when prompted by circumstance, may come out. But in the Nishtha stage, it's not like suppression. It's just bhakti is sufficiently powerful that they don't act. And then gradually, right up until, as you see from the chart, right up to the bhava stage, they're still there. In the asakti stage, which he didn't get to yet, there's a trace, but not prominent, and so forth. In the just above that one, and that I do this laser pointer. Yeah, I was speaking about this little change right here. And then just above it, it simply said full force, but it didn't say gradually reducing, and that's a big emphasis. In the bhajana kriya anartana vritti, that's gradually reducing the influence of material aspiration. And then the spiritual aspiration is more specific, detectable in many places in the nishtha stage. That is to say, in the nishtha stage, it's the description that we heard is as the heart, or as the seat of consciousness, the soul, becomes more purified up to the point where bhakti is very strong, the Lord may suddenly appear in the mind. The form of the Lord, or some emotion connected to your activities of bhakti, and it suddenly appears and may suddenly disappear. And there's nice examples. One nice example is Narada Muni describing to Vyas his previous life. And Narada in his previous life was an obscure person, the son of a maidservant. That's all it doesn't say anything about his father, just the son of a maidservant. And he got mercy from the sages for the 4 months of the rainy season, etc., 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 etc. And they, before they parted, they gave him, besides mercy, they gave him a process to follow. So he followed that process as he grew, and in the course of his meditation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared in his meditation. And then he was in ecstasy. His body and his mind and his whole being was in ecstasy, and then suddenly, poof, the Lord disappeared. Right in the Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 6, I think it is. So then he was startled. His meditation broke. Looking around, where did he go? Then he heard the Lord's voice saying, normally in this stage that you were in, I don't show myself. I show myself when one is more qualified. But for you, I showed myself so that you would be encouraged to continue for the rest of your life doing like this, and you will attain me. And sure enough, he did. So this is the modified chart that we saw towards the end yesterday. And here's the close-up of the Nishtha moving into the Ruchi platform. You see on the either side of Nishtha, below in pale letters, is unshakable resolve. Nishtha, unshakable resolve. It doesn't mean perfect, but very determined. Unshakable determination, thus steady. And created by favorable characteristics, favorable to bhakti, or by bhakti itself, sakshat bhakti. And then from the nishtha stage, one may move into the taste for bhajan stage, or ruchi. That's what's above. And you see on either side those attainments that dependent upon the excellence of the elements of bhajan, And on the right side is there's no dependence on the excellence of the aspects of bhajan. It's just the name or the activities of devotional practice. They're all attractive. So, attainment of taste, that's the meaning of this stage. It's very elevated, and thus like in Shikshastika, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shikshastika 2, Dirdivam Idrishim Ahajani Nanuraga. I have no anurag, no attachment, no attraction, no taste. Having listed all what the holy name is and what it can bestow, and so there's proper regard, because we heard one of the things that's essential is to have proper regard for that which is spiritual. So he expresses, at least in Shikshastika 2, the proper regard, the glories of the Mahima, of the glories of the holy name. But unfortunate as I am, I have no attraction. So I haven't reached the Ruchi stage yet. That's what Shikshastika 2 is saying. And then, according to Shastika 3, it gives a very simple formula. Very simple. Humility, tolerance, offering of respect, expecting no respect in return. That's maybe the fourth one is the most difficult one. You offer respect and you expect respect in return. And when you don't get respect in return, you continue to offer respect and you continue to offer respect and you continue to offer respect. Supposing you get disrespect or silence or not respect, but you continue to offer respect. So that's a spiritual stage of consciousness. So here's the poetic. Now it's to go into these higher stages. It's essential that one has to be poetic to describe that which is beyond ordinary experience. So here's some poetic comparison. When the devotee takes into his heart the golden jewel, some say medallion, some say coin, the translation, of bhakti, shining brightly by the fire of steady, uninterrupted practice, abhyasa. So that's what helps one get to the stage of taste, is steady, uninterrupted practice. That's the nishtha, having attained nishtha by practice and practice and practice and practice, and propelled by its own energy, meaning that when nishtha is there, it's with the practice, the sadhana is without effort. Before that, there's effort, which is just fine. And after that, it just flows without effort. I was visiting with a godbrother not so long ago, and he was describing, it was a nice discussion. He was just openly sharing with me the stage of his chanting. And it's very elevated, the conversation. As soon as he wakes up, he's attracted to begin chanting. It's like the first thing in his mind. There's some other things that he does after that thought, but it's the heart's attraction. It was even describing, I was I wasn't asking, but it's just because of the nice relationship we have. He was sharing confidentially that he has a very clear sense of his spiritual identity. Spiritual identity, not, the servant of Krishna, generic, but his spiritual identity. I didn't ask, tell me. But he was just, so it arises from within. we'll hear something further as we go along, because attachment, bhava, and prema. Propelled by its own energy, just focusing on that. Without effort. Effort without effort. So propelled by its own energy means, in some ways, spontaneous. Like spontaneous combustion. That's a common use of the word spontaneous. You put this and that and just leave it alone. Spontaneous combustion. Fire comes. So if you put this and this and this, not guaranteed, but spontaneous combustion. So spontaneous bhakti, or propelled up by its own energy. Then ruchi appears. And it's describing this ruchi as shining brightly by the fire of steady, uninterrupted practice. And Vishwanath gives a couple of examples. One of them is a young Brahmin student. In the student stage of her young Brahmin, he's engaged in studies. And his first studies may be arduous. Some students may be more attracted, some less attracted, but it's work. It takes effort. However, after the student starts to get to understand the message of the scripture here, it says the import, then it becomes more interesting. And as the interest awakens and awakens, then the study is no longer a burden. He looks forward to it. And then as time passes, we're going to hear, he doesn't become tired. He just wants more and more and more. So the attainment of taste has that symptom, such as anything other than hearing and chanting, no thanks. And no fatigue when hearing and chanting, because we heard in the in the nishtha stage that one of the features is laya. One may become easily fatigued or just drowsy or fall asleep, indolent. But no fatigue in this ruchi stage. And great attachment. One eagerly looks forward to, fantastic, another day of chanting. Another, whatever it is, the time commitment you have with your morning activities. Not only chanting, the other aspects of your morning program. Your Mangalarti, or your deity worship, or your reciting of prayers, or reciting of slokas, or something, whatever your personal daily sadhana is, in addition to the chanting of the holy name. Because chanting of the holy name is in itself very central and very essential. The second example, along with the young Brahmin student, is a very familiar one. It's in Rupa Goswami's writings, and chronologically, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur came after Rupa Goswami, so he uses the same. But there's a liver disease, commonly known as jaundice, and there's a cure for that liver disease, and that's sugar candy or rock candy or misri, or different ways of describing what it is. And the point is, prior to ruchi, there may not be a taste. In the stage of ruchi, there's a taste. That is, the disease has been cured. And so the taste is sweet because it's sweet. The taste is sweet because it's sweet. It's just like, I'll say it again, it's just like this example of magnifying glass. The light, the fire of the sun is all around us. We're not feeling the intensity of the fire of the sun. To some degree, it may be hot, but not burning. But burning is by taking that fire, heat, and light of the sun and focusing it by magnifying glass, and you can start a fire. And anything organic, it'll burn, just the light, the focus of the light of the sun. Similarly, the holy name is all spiritual, and one may not experience it in the jaundiced condition, but in the cured from the jaundice disease or the liver disease, the sweetness of rock candy or sugar candy is tasted. Similarly, the power of the holy name is something that one experiences, and it's not just power, it has the power to overcome, to remove unwanted things, anarthas, from within, and then outside, what's inside comes outside. Then there's a real taste. Then it's just moving of its own power, of its own volition. Later in this section, Ruchi is going to be called the dance. And there's a dance instructor. But the Ruchi is a dance, and it's just it happens. I mean, dancing may happen during kirtan because everyone else is dancing, or it's what you're supposed to do, so you get up and dance. But it's natural when you're feeling joyful to dance. It just comes out. So that Ruchi is that dance. Ruchi is the dance of bhakti where there's a real taste. And here's a little explanation given by Vishwanath. The jiva's heart, this is the prior to Ruchi, infected with ignorance and other kleshas, becomes cured by the medicine of repeated hearing, chanting, and other devotional methods. Innate taste restores gradually. So that's prior to Ruchi, and now at the Ruchi stage, it's restored. There's actually a moving out of its own. Then comes this distinction, Ruchi that arises when bhajan has nice elements, and Ruchi that arises when it has nothing to do with the nice elements. Now, in the Sanskrit, there's the word vastu. And vastu, vishishtya, apekshani and anapekshani, where the elements are excellent or not excellent. But vastu, the explanation is given. Vastu means the object. That's Krishna, or the source of everything. And when that which is portraying the source of everything, the elements are excellent, then it's a little easier that when the kirtan singer is super excellent. I remember a story when, this was 1970, a few years ago. One of the artists, his name was Muralidhar. Muralidhar is he was quiet but powerful. It's a nice combination. Whenever there were dramas, he was always the demon. My first experience of a drama in ISKCON was on Nrsimha Chaturdasi. And I was just a visitor, didn't know anybody or anything, and I didn't know it was Nrsimha Chaturdasi and all of that. And when it came time for the drama, in the temple room, there were very tall curtains. And even during Aarti, Muralidhar was hidden behind the curtain because it was curtains all the way down to the floor. And when Nrsingadev appeared, he burst out of the curtain, and he roared, and his arms were up, and he's a big body and really big eyebrows, and he was roaring. You know, people could have had a heart attack because it was really scary. He was intense, but otherwise very well composed and gentle demeanor, but an intense internal. The bhakta, a really nice devotee, excellent artist. So he was curious. He wanted to find out from Prabhupada here's some paintings that we did, here's some posters that are his, common, well-known posters. Which one of these looks most like Krishna? That's a good question for an artist, because they want to portray Krishna to be like Krishna. And here was Prabhupada's answer. This was the elements don't matter standard. He said, there's a peacock feather, there's his flute, threefold bending, they're all Krishna. He said, yeah, but which one looks most like what Krishna liked? And he said, they're all Krishna. Anyway, that was Prabhupada's answer. Now, Prabhupada wanted the artists to paint where the elements were excellent. Why? Because he wanted people to read his books. He wanted people to read his books. And one of the things that people like when they get one of Prabhupada's books is to look at the pictures. Isn't it? Yeah. You like Back to Godhead magazine. It's one of the nice features of Back to Godhead magazine is all the nice artwork. And he had a whole team. I'm going into some ISKCON history here, but many of the devotees that were painting for in the beginning for ISKCON Press, they had never held a paintbrush in their hand before, but Prabhupada engaged them. So they made stick figure looking Panchatattva paintings because they didn't know anything. At a certain point in time, this is another little Prabhupada said, at a certain point in time, the devotees asked Prabhupada, I never had a paintbrush in my hand before, and so should we take some art classes, Prabhupada? He said no. This was his answer. Lord Brahma has made the body in such a way that if you do something for Krishna and do it for the purpose of pleasing Krishna, Krishna will give you the ability. Isn't that nice? Some people are really good at cooking. Some people are not good at cooking. But keep practice with you can learn some things from people that are good cooks, but just do it for Krishna is the most important ingredient. And then because you're doing it for Krishna, Krishna will decorate your cooking or your singing or your thising or thating or the other thing. Supposing you get, spiffy training. It's not going to have the same bhakti power, not going to have the same heart transforming power. That's what Prabhupada wanted in training the new people, whether it was artists or anything else. So vastu here means the object of worship. So the object of worship is being portrayed specifically here in hearing and chanting. So the speaker is a good speaker. Some persons are gifted. Some persons aren't so gifted. It's important is that the message is being repeated intact. And it's important to avoid just making stuff up because you want to say something attractive, so you make some attractive stuff up. Don't do that. Practice that Krishna is to be pleased, and then one who is in the stage of ruchi, the elements don't have to be so excellent. So here's the same thing again. the dependent, where kirtan, deity worship, prasadam, the elements are excellent. Kirtan and bhajan having a beautiful melody is an indispensable requirement for taste that's in this dependent condition. And he writes, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur writes, that's a dosha, abhasa. A dosha is a fault or a trace impurity. And then comes where it's not dependent upon the excellence of elements. There no more dosha, no more impurity. To note, even in the ruchi stage, it can be of the lesser and then can be of the greater stage or maturity. And humility becomes profound. Not self-glorification or self-gratification, but humility becomes more profound. That is, my former lack, I am embarrassed by it, and I was an embarrassment to the Sangha of devotees. This is Vishwanath's language. I am so unfortunate. I kept the precious jewel of bhakti received from my spiritual master tied in the hem of my cloth. The precious jewel of bhakti. I lick up the bitter tasting, deceitful, profane gossip as if nectar. I become sleepy during katha, but my ears perk up whenever there is vulgar idle talk. I have stained the assembly of devotees. So it's in one sense, it's self-deprecation. But it's not just self-deprecation. There's taste. So there's an appreciation for the genuine, but some sense of regret of, it took me so long to get here. No, it does take some time to get there because there's steadiness over a period of time of effort and focus and not being distracted, etc., etc. It's not cheap, not quick. But it's natural and progressive. And when one attains it, the point that Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur is saying, it's a natural byproduct that one feels profound. One becomes boastful. Something's wrong. I've got a taste. Da-da-da-da. It's incompatible with what the standard of what elevated consciousness is. Then he gets into this nice poetic language again. Devotional service is like a dance. Devotional service is like a dance, and the dance instructor is Ruchi. Sometimes he writes that the Ruchi itself is the dance, and then the instructor is Bhava and Prema. Here's Lord Chaitanya and his associates engaging in dancing or tasting, Ruchi, tasting the holy name in ecstasy. Here's another Prabhupada said, when kirtan is going on, supposing you're not feeling ecstasy, raise your arms and dance anyways, and you'll feel ecstasy. He encouraged. There's a very nice chapter in the history of Srila Prabhupada. As you know, at some point in time, Kripamoy was narrating this. Kripamoy is a very senior member of the UK Yatra. And when Prabhupada was very, very, very ill, like fading and weak like anything, somehow Tamal Krishna Maharaj got the inspiration. Prabhupada, you're a warrior. You belong in the battlefield, and let us go to the West and preach Krishna consciousness. His body's emaciated, but he said, yes, let's go. So they went. And there were two plans. Expressed by Prabhupada. One plan was to enliven the devotees that were depending upon him for their source of enlivenment. And another was, second, was to teach and show by example Varnashram, because that was a stage, it's a social structure. But the theme of simple living, high thinking was being talked about by Prabhupada a lot and written about. There's 2 chapters in the Uddhava Gita just on Varnashram. It's important. I mean, that's toward the end of Krishna's instructions. So, he went to the West. And when he went to London, Kripamoy was saying the devotees were shocked because he could barely sit up. He was so thin, emaciated from illness, hardly eating. But in Prabhupada's presence, their chanting was ecstatic because they're with Prabhupada again. And they don't know if they're going to be with him ever again. So the kirtan was, and Kripamoya said, and the devotees from Germany, they came. And so the Bhaktivedanta Manor temple room was packed with enthusiastic devotees doing this, dancing. And Prabhupada saw the dancing, and he started moving his hand like this. And the temple room exploded because they were like sorrowful seeing Prabhupada look like this. But he went like this, bouncing off the ceiling and off the walls, and the kirtan went wild. And Prabhupada was continuing to move his hand like this. He wanted to see the devotees experiencing and exhibiting that experience in the form of ruchi, dance. And sometimes, this is a posed painting, but, kirtan, says Sankirtan, the beginning, I was thinking about this last several days. There was a time when everybody in the temple went out on Sankirtan, public chanting like this for at least an hour every day. I remember very clearly. The devotees that were part of the ISKCON press, they had important work to do. The composers and transcribers and the artists and the editors and the thises and the that's. And the book publication was like the heartbeat of Prabhupada's gift to the world. As important as their service was, everyone went out on Harinam at least for an hour every day. Every day. Every day. Every day. Just like Mangalarti, you're brushing your teeth, or every day, Harinam. It was really nice. It kind of like, let's go in Harinam. And with Harinam, there was the distribution, because there wasn't volumes of literature to distribute like today. It was mainly, at that time, there was, of course, the first canto Bhagavatam, but Bhagavad Gita wasn't available yet, the Macmillan version of Bhagavad Gita. It was just Back to Godhead magazine and invitations to the temple. So that's what we did. With taste, without a taste. It was that the sadhana leads to purification, leads to nishtha, leads to taste. So rough, unpolished diamonds or jewels became polished and shine, and began to shine. Just from this practical activity. And now another statement Vishwanath makes about the stage of Ruchi. As Ruchi gains maturity into this, regardless of the elements, it uproots the last vestiges of bad qualities from the heart. So after Ruchi comes a Sakti. We're still not at the Bhava stage when everything is squeaky clean. The Shuddha Sattva stage. But bad qualities are taken from the heart. Keep going, Prabhus. At this mature stage of Ruchi, one has become fixed in Seva Nishtha, pure unalloyed service to Krishna. So, pure unalloyed service to Krishna, the statement is being made by Vishwanath. He's not mistaken. Pure devotional service may, in fact, that you remember that chart, there's still residue of something other than, let's say, residue of material attraction. But pure devotional service cleans it away, and seva nishtha becomes fixed. So nishtha is before ruchi, but when in the mature stage of ruchi, it's super fixed. From the heart to the mind to the words and body, from the internal going outward. In this stage of ruchi, one hears and chants the Lord's name, qualities, and pastimes in a strong and steady way. Now, nishtha is already the strong and steady, but it just becomes more prominent propelled by its own energy, more prominent, strong and steady. It's a nice painting, huh? So that's the prema stage, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited the same, the engaging everyone, and the everyone were so amazed by the stages of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's expressions of ecstasy and the taste that he had for hours and hours and hours and hours. He would have disciples, Srup Damodar and Gadadhar Pandit and others, read the Srimad Bhagavatam or recite slokas from different poetic authors or the Bhagavatam's message, and kirtan, and with kirtan, ecstatic kirtan. Here's Lord Nityananda. Lord Chaitanya is, of course, in the center, jumping high in the air, and over to his left, or to our right, that's Nityananda dressed in blue. And then there's behind him Swarup Damodar dressed in saffron cloth, Ramananda Roy dressed like an aristocratic governor that he was, and then other associates involved, and some of them are ready to catch Lord Chaitanya in case he fell, because sometimes he fell and just like smashed into the ground. So they're ready to catch him in case that happened. But he is at the center. His ecstasy is at the center. The holy name is at the center. So then more poetry from Vishwanath. We're almost finished. Here's a bumblebee going from flower to flower. By good fortune, those who attain ruchi will come across the literary works describing the transcendental glories of Sri Gauranga. This literature captures the essence of the Vedas, likened to a mystical flowering tree, fulfilling all desires. This fortunate devotee becomes like a honeybee who constantly drinks the ambrosia from flower blossoms. Now, most likely, all of us in the room, now there's some devotees that grow up with Chaitanya Bhakti or Lord Chaitanya as part of their childhood activity. But most the rest of us it's something that, a little bit this discussion from yesterday, it's something that it's new to us. The personality and the gift of Lord Chaitanya and the methodology of Lord Chaitanya and the associates of, it's all new. And it's, in the beginning, because it's new, it's not something we're familiar with, it's new. It's like, it takes a while to let it grow and become familiar with it and to be able to taste the sweetness of it. But as one becomes more matured and one becomes fortunate, then there's this very, very special attraction for Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Just a little sharing. Sidebar. I've been visiting China since the year 2010. And in the year 2010, I was the chairman of the GBC. And there was no job description. So I started thinking of who were really qualified GBC chairman. And the one person I thought of was Rabindra Swarup Prabhu, because he's just like brilliant. He's not like super administrator, but he's just brilliant. So I thought of him and I consulted him, and the idea started to arise. What's really important in the world? The chairman of the GBC has to be thinking about what's important in the world. So I literally got a globe and started turning the globe around. And there's China. And 2010, world population-wise, there's a lot of people in China. And influence in the world, China was on the rise. Now it's more than on the rise, but it was on the rise during that period of time. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj had left the planet. And so there were two GBCs that took his place, successors to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And how can you replace Tamal Krishna Maharaj? And one of them had this very severe illness. So he wasn't even able to move around at all. And the other was blacklisted from getting into China. So there wasn't presence of a GBC in China for that year. So I thought, let me go to China. Not like, what the heck, but, it's important. So I went to China, and wow, the receptivity was amazing. Because, the government is what the government is, but the people are who the people are, and there's a big difference between the government and the people. Anyway. So that I found out from starting to visit China that two things. People are workaholics. Like passion up to the eyebrows. Work. Take some rest, sleep, something to eat, work. Workaholic. I mean, it's like that in the West, but China's got its beat. But there's 1 week we have our national holiday, like 4th of July and stuff like that. They have their national holiday, the People's Republic. There's a national holiday when they celebrate becoming the People's Republic of China. The Communist Party, blah, 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 Mao, blah, blah, blah. So the whole week, for 1 whole week, people don't work. National holiday. So I decided, let me visit for sure during national holiday. So I did, in course of time, I started conducting a week-long national holiday event. And the person who was a co-presenter with me was Nrsinga Maharaj, who was from Scotland, and it's very different personality, very, very different personality. But he's a nice devotee. And so I teach different something every year. This coming national holiday in Chinese, I'm going to be teaching Madhurya Kadambini. And the Nrsinga Maharaj, is going to be teaching Chaitanya Charitamrita because of its sweetness. And what do the people in China know about Lord Chaitanya? What do we know about Lord Chaitanya? And they know less than we know. But he's all attractive, and the pastimes are very instructive. So the fortunate devotee becomes like a honeybee who constantly drinks the ambrosia from flower blossoms, the flower blossoms of the very sweet literature, the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And by the way, it's now available in Chinese, in Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's some other nice things, but we'll just move on. This is the last slide for this evening. Seeking the company of saints, persons who are in this stage of ruchi shun the common crowd. Residing in holy places, they must engage in serving the Supreme Lord with a pure heart. I mean, they want to become pure, want to become more pure, and as mentioned, the seva nishta becomes firmly established, and they're naturally attracted to holy places and associating with sadhus in those holy places spontaneously. After serving the Lord with a pure heart, Ruchi, the divine dancer, then attracts the devotee's attention, and he aspires to learn dancing, meaning Ruchi, the ways of taste. The devotee should then associate with the Rasika Bhaktas, who are expert in the same art of dancing, and learn it from them. For the first time, the devotee thus experiences an ecstasy beyond description, because that's leading to the next stage, asakti and bhava and prema. With the passage of time, when the two perfect dance masters, bhava and prema, appear and teach the devotee the sublime dances. So it's poetic. Again, poetry or poetic expression is necessary to describe that which is far, far beyond our experience. So poetry or imagery, painting a picture, so that when we're not there, we can get a sense of what it's like to be there, and inviting and encouraging us to want to get there. Try it sometime. Try asking somebody that's very deeply involved in this tradition, that tradition, the other tradition. What's it like there when you get to that place that's, your destination? What's it like? You're not going to get a clear answer. I've done it. I did it myself when I was little. No answer. But with the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Devotion, we get an amazing picture with lots of, it's so high, it's hard to grasp it, but the picture is full. The form of, as Prabhupada says, we know who is God, we know his form, we know his name, we know his address, we know his associates, we know his family members, we know everything. Now, we know through the authority of Scripture, but this is very elevated Scripture. And the process to contact Krishna and the fullness of all of where Krishna is and what Krishna is up to, it's there in our literature. And that's what this is saying. Specifically, this literature about Lord Chaitanya. It's the postgraduate study. Undergraduate, graduate, postgraduate. Very elevated. Very elevated. And the next 3 chapters, the final 3 chapters of Madhurya Kadambini, get out your telescope. It's way up there. So we can, we'll go through the explanation, and it's part of a science, but it's not within our experience presently. So there's further poetry and further expressions of what's it like up there. But it's to give us a picture and encourage us to want to get there and be in the company of, as it's saying here, the Rasika Bhaktas, who are expert dancers. They're ready to teach dancing. They're ready to teach the ways of higher stages of bhakti. Okay. Let's see if there's some discussion.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for your merciful association. Maharaj, I have 2 questions. First one is, so when we try to please Krishna by any service, how do we actually know that if Krishna is pleased or not?
How do we know what?
If Krishna is pleased or not.
If he what?
If he is pleased or not.
Oh.
Like if you are trying to please Krishna.
How do you know anything about anything? There's subjective and there's objective. Guru Sadhu Shastra, then you can know. And so, then there's the subjective. You can say some, from the verses of the Bhagavatam, that's Shastra, we can know. Yenatma suprasidati. Suprasidati. Atma suprasidati. One is feeling satisfied. That is to say, na sochati na kangsati. There's no more hankering, lamenting. Now there's spiritual hankering that increases. But that's in intimacy with Krishna, but not a material hankering or lamenting. So material affinity diminished, spiritual affinity increased, Krishna is pleased. And loving attraction for Krishna and wanting, all these symptoms are being described and further will be described. So Guru Sadhu Shastra and Atma Suprasidati. How do you know when you've eaten enough? You're feeling full. Somebody may ask you, could you take some more? Oh, thank you. I'm full. Oh, you sure? Maybe some of this? No. Atma Suprasidati. That's subjective. And then Guru Sadhu Shastra.
Thank you so much. My second question is, if a person is not Swarup Siddha and he doesn't know his spiritual identity, like the example you gave that Maharaj already knew his spiritual identity. So in that case, and for sadhaka, he understands that he's trying to understand that he is a servant of Srila Prabhupada, for example. Could it be possible that in the spiritual world, Srila Prabhupada would engage that person in his Swarup Siddhi?
Oh, come
because
on.
he's trying
Let's not speculate like that.
So yeah,
Let's not do that.
Okay.
Please, let's not do that. Let me see. What's it?
Yes.
Don't do that.
Just wanted to add to that, Maharaj. Yeah. So, do we have to be Swarup Siddha before we go to the spiritual world, or do we have to be the servant of Srila Prabhupada? Yes.
Lock in to your constitutional position as an eternal servant of Krishna, and everything. Upcoming chapters are going to indicate answers to your question, and it's mental speculate. What you're doing right now is mental speculation. It's not realization or anything like that. So things become revealed through the power of bhakti itself. We'll hear as we go forward. So everything will become revealed. But you start with where you are right now. No, it's okay to ask, but start with where you are right now. Become more focused on Krishna's pleasure, defocused on what's going to be my experience. And how is it going to unfold? It's okay. There is a science. It's okay. But focus on, what's right in front of your nose. Stay focused. And the spiritual form is revealed by bhakti, by bhakti itself. Now there's representatives of bhakti herself, but through the agency of those bhakti representatives, but it's bhakti that reveals. So there's the answer to your question.
Thank you so much.
In due course. I see a hand in the back behind you.
Maharaj, Indra offends.
Not so loud, please.
Sorry, so sorry. So sorry, Maharaj. I'll try to be slow.
Thank you.
Maharaj, Indra offends Brihaspati. What was the fault of the demigods who were following Indra? They didn't offend Brihaspati, they lost their kingdom.
Speak slower, please.
Yes, Maharaj. So, Maharaj, Indra offends Brihaspati.
Indra offended Brihaspati, yes.
All the demigods lost their kingdom.
All the demigods what?
Lost their kingdom.
Lost their what?
Lost their kingdom. Heavenly planets, they had to lose their kingdom.
You speak too fast. They lost their residence in the heavenly planets also.
Yes. So what was the fault of other followers of Indra? They didn't do any offense. They didn't commit any offense, but they had to take the effect of that offense.
Well, what's 2 + 2 = 4, right? So if your leader is exemplary, then the followers get the benefit of the exemplary leader. If the leader has some dosha, then the followers receive some of the dosha. There's this nice example of different circumstance, but similar principle. The principle is when the Brahmana whose sons disappeared shortly after their birth, multiple times, the Brahmana went right to the king and accused the king. There's discrepancy in your kingdom, which means this shouldn't be happening, but it's happening in your kingdom. Therefore, you're at fault. And because you're at fault, I'm suffering. My sons, not that they died, they just disappeared. They didn't die, they just disappeared. What's that? What kind of king are you? So the head, the fruits of the person that's doing virtue or a qualified leader type, the benefit goes, and the opposite is also true. It's another nice, same principle. When Ambarish was engaged in his austerities, he was fully opulent. He didn't need more opulence. He did not need more fruits of piety. He was interested in giving benefit to his citizens. That was the purpose behind what he was doing when his vratas. Because it would go to the citizens, and the opposite is also true. So your question is, what was their fault? And their leader was at fault. And they shared in the consequence of their leader's fault, the offense of their leader. It's one of the principal objections that Prabhupada had to democracy. When people are in ignorance, who are they going to elect? They don't have the intelligence to understand who's qualified. They're going to select some, the loudest barking dog. It's going on, isn't it? Yes.
Hare Krishna. My name is Bhakti Kevin.
Hare Krishna, Bhakti Kevin.
I appreciated your desire to preach in China. It was a nice story. I thought that was going to be my calling. But recently I've been engaged to preach to Muslims. And His Grace Amoga Leela Prabhu has been helping me. He helped start Hare Krishna in Pakistan.
In Pakistan.
Yeah, Pakistan, which is a Muslim country. So it's got me thinking a lot about Prabhupada's vision of Daivi Varnashram.
Uh-huh.
And it's such a new time. You know, we're 50 or, 100 years into this global mind, global society. And most of the Abrahamic religions are still stuck on this linear timeline of Judaic, Christian, Muslim. The final prophet is Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And you have to follow these rules to, or else you're going to hell. And then
is your topic going to be on this topic? Or your question
Yes.
going to be on this topic?
it's on Daivi Varnashram.
Okay. That's not exactly what the Madhurya Kadambini topic is, but you
I
can go
wasn't here
ahead.
in the beginning. I'm sorry. I wasn't here in the beginning. I got here late.
Yeah. We've been at I don't mind anything, but it's part of my experience and responsibility is to keep the conversation focused on topic. And the topic is the stages of bhakti from Shraddha to Prema. That's the topic.
Okay.
It's
Awesome.
Rupa Goswami being explained by his subsequent Acharya Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the steps and stages and unfolding of the seed of bhakti that's received, and bhakti seed, and it grows and it grows and it grows, and just like this poster, the seed from the seed to the full blossom and fruit and flower at the top. So that's our topic. So try to keep your discussion focused on our topic. If you I hope that's okay.
So Srila Rupa Goswami says to develop this bhakti
Creeper, yeah.
Bhakti creeper, we should live in a holy place. When we do in the West, or for traveling Sankirtan, is there, with Srila Prabhupada's instruction, which is to go out and do books, should we just constantly have that as a meditation or a separation, if you will, since it's not,
how can we, the how-to questions have a two-word answer that can be expanded, but sadhu sangha is the two-word answer. Or if you hyphenated it, it's one word. Sadhu sangha. So how do we even know about the mission or know about the books or know about anything? Is through the medium of those who have it, and they pass it on to us. So book distribution is where we receive something and we're passing it on to others. But the principle of how to get to stay fixed and inspired is sadhu sangha. You associate with those that have that enthusiasm, and it's contagious. You become infected with their enthusiasm, or at least the possibility. You stand near a fire, you get warm. You associate with those that have the mission in the core of their heart, and it's like vibrant. It's easy to pass it on.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, sadhu sangha.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I have two questions.
Okay.
So we discussed about Ruchi and Nishtha, but it looks like that Nishtha also has the taste,
Yes,
and Ruchi also has
it
the
has
taste.
matured.
Yeah, so this is not a kind of a bucket system, but of course it is all over.
There's overlap, yes. Let's do this in response to your question. I said it yesterday. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes that this seed of bhakti has a preliminary faith, and the other 8 are just stages of faith. So it's faith with this label, faith with that label, faith with... So faith is throughout. Similarly, what you're saying. So I also said this earlier. These stages are not buckets. And then this bucket fills, and then you start to fill up that bucket because it has nothing in it. It's not like that. There's an overlap, and it just moves from one stage to another stage, but there's overlap of the stages. It's not clear cut, this end, that begins. So your assessment is correct. There's elements that are like, but it's something becomes particularly prominent. And it's like her question about Laya and Apratipati. There are some similarities, but there are some differences. There's a stage. So, a thoughtful person will see the similarity. You're a thoughtful person. You're seeing similarities. But it's not exactly the same because it's a stage of development, a more mature stage. Like a creeper. More mature, more mature, more mature, more mature.
Thank you. And second question I have is, I was looking at this document, and one place, yes, where there is Asat Trishna, thirst for non-spiritual things. This is under Anarth Nivriti. And one of the items, that attraction for 5 types of liberation, is mentioned under non-spiritual things. Now we know from Rupa Goswami's definition that moksha laghuta, correct?
That's at the Bhava stage.
Yes.
Yeah.
But calling the liberation as a non-spiritual thing, because it comes as a side effect with the bhakti.
There's this, we touched on this topic 2 days ago. There's a spiritual and there's a non-spiritual type of liberation. And this is speaking of the non-spiritual type of liberation, because it's negation is non-spiritual. But then there's spiritual. They go back to Godhead,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah.
So they're spiritual, or the loving relationship. There's spiritual liberation, but then there's the aspiration. Anyway, why don't you clarify your question one more time.
Yes, so I understand that there is a negation thing, that an impersonal liberation
Yes.
is there, but
Yes.
this specifically says all 5 types of liberation is non-spiritual.
But what are those all 5 types? This chart, what you're holding your hand on, everyone got a copy. It's taken from Bhanu Swami. I didn't make the chart. So what are the 5 non-spiritual types of liberation? I don't know what that reference is. There's categories of negation. That's what I take it. So, like, let's just say, here's 2 of the 5. Shankaracharya's teaching and Buddha's teachings. They're non-spiritual. Although they allude to something spiritual, they're not, because it's definition by negation. And what's on the other side, one says Nirguna Brahman, and the other is void. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, and scholars following him have also said, Shankaracharya took that which Buddha gave and gave it a spin, but it's covered Buddhism. That's keeping it short, sweet, simple. So those are 2. Now, what are the other 3? I don't know. I didn't make the chart. But there's non-spiritual liberation. And basically, there's no shelter in what's reality. The reality, besides Brahman is real, but it's unstable if one doesn't have the constitutional position of the soul active, service to the Supreme Person. Then that's liberation. Service to the Supreme. It's on the liberated platform. Brahmabhuta prasanatma nasochati nakangsati. Madbhaktim labate param. It's on the liberated platform. But it's not, it's the spiritual, it's not the material negation type. No, again, there's 2, and what the other 3 are, I don't know. I can research it. Maybe I can write to him. I'll do that. I'll write to him. Send me a little text message to remind me, because I might forget, but I probably won't forget. What are the 5 non-spiritual types of liberation? To see what he was intending by that statement, which is what you're asking. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. I have a question on Nectar. We spoke
How
that
come you're so soft and he was so loud? Oh. Okay. You can hear you without the microphone. You got to speak correctly. Hare Krishna.
we spoke about the steadiness that's coming from the bhakti directly and the steadiness that's coming from things that are favorable to bhakti.
Yes.
Does one culminate in other, or both lead to the when perfected lead to ruchi?
Do both lead to ruchi? Is that your question?
Yes.
Yes. Because steadiness is steadiness. And it's not that the elements that are favorable to bhakti exist without bhakti. Bhakti is there. Bhakti generates those things that are favorable. But it's not necessarily complete. Bhakti is not in the sakshat bhakti category yet. But the steady, so it'll help bhakti become steady. It's an assist. And then reasonably, it's a guarantee, but reasonably, because it's steadiness, then bhakti will become more mature also in that second. So then as bhakti becomes, steadiness leads to taste. So yes. Right behind you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. When you talked about the stage of ruchi, there are two specific subsections to that, one of which is in which the taste is not dependent upon the excellence of externals.
Right. You got it.
And so there were two examples that were given, one in which...
Speak slowly.
Sorry.
To what?
There were two examples that were given.
Yes.
One of which was in kirtan, sometimes we focus on the melody.
Yes.
And in terms of a lecture maybe, or Krishna Katha, we think about the delivery of the speaker himself or
Yeah.
herself.
Okay, good. Prasadam is another one.
So my question was, should we focus on just our sadhana in order to attain that steadiness, or
Yes.
to have steadiness in that sadhana, or should we also proactively try to not focus on externals?
Yeah, the horse pulls the cart. So focus on the horse. But you don't neglect the cart. You just focus on the horse, because the horse will pull the cart. So if you or me or any one of us want to get free from, dependency, false shelters or dependencies on things other than Krishna, we stay focused on Krishna, and then we try to eliminate the other dependencies or the other shelters. But it's the horse before the cart. To make the heart clean, you have to have bhakti. You don't have bhakti, the heart, it's just practically impossible. Very, 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 very rare to get to that stage that's beyond false shelters without bhakti. So that's a horse before the cart. And then you're aware, but it's on the strength of bhakti, that you're aware of what these other shelters, in my case, might be, or in general for people are. And I'm just staying focused on bhakti or sadhana properly performed. And not be casual with, let's say, how I deal with others. I'm sensitive. You become more cultured, more capable of being sensitive to how you speak and, everything. How you deal with unkindness and how you deal with kindness, how you deal with, life. It's the cart pulled by the horse. Okay. I see a hand way in the back.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you. This class was so nice. It was, and your presentation also was like a dance. Thank you so much. It was.
I'm just sitting, but I can dance while I'm sitting.
Thank you,
Pretty
Maharaj.
good.
It was such a wonderful experience to hear this topic. Maharaj, on that question about the Asat Trishna that Snehavalli Mataji was asking, I just wanted to ask, or like the thought that comes to my mind is on this Asat Trishna in the chart, it says it is attraction for the 5 types of liberation. That's what it says. And I was just, the thought that was coming to my mind, and please correct me or offer your comments, that isn't it similar to like what Vallabha Bhatta,
Yes,
the
it's
fault
similar.
that he pointed and calling it
Yeah.
witches.
Yes, but my understanding of her question was not aspiring for, in contrast to what are these 5 categories. So you picked up on an important point, and her question was a little different.
Okay.
What are those 5? Could you please identify those 5? Asha is the point you're making, the aspiring for.
Yes.
Thirst for, asat.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Krishna. Asat Trishna can become Krishna Trishna. Yes. Pass the microphone up.
Thank you, Maharaj. My question is, so this Bhakti Lata, actually I table the question of a parallel limb of Gyan Lata, but this Bhakti Lata, if we were to observe this as, if you forget the body, and if you think about mind, intelligence, false ego, for a soul to migrate through this tree, it could take multiple lives.
It could take what?
Multiple lifetimes.
Well, it doesn't have to.
Right, but we do see devotees like Prahlad, and also, in our devotee community, the kids, they're probably at Nishtha level, and definitely Prahlad, Maharaj, and so on, they were probably at Bhava level, right? So they probably caught up from prior lives.
They're speculating.
I am speculating, but the way you said, like for example, for Nishtha, there is a bhakti way, and then there is also the left side, which is just a behavioral, the humbleness which naturally comes and so on, right? So that must be a gift, right?
That's not what?
That must be a gift, or from the past.
Of course. Where does Krishna has a big warehouse? He has a good quality warehouse, and someone comes to him as a devotee. Oh, let me decorate my devotee with some good qualities. This quality, that quality. They're not steady yet, but this quality, so it'll help them become steady. Just encouraging this quality, that quality. Your question is a little bit like her question. Not the same, but it's... Now, where's the train going? What's the point that you'd like us to receive from you?
I was just trying to comprehend if all this is possible in one lifetime.
Oh, of course, less than a moment.
Okay.
Now, that's rare, but there's no material cause, no material impediment. Ahaitukiya pratyata, yatma suprasiditi. It takes time. Why does it take time? Because we're attached. Supposing someone has less attachment or capacity to just let go of attachments, the material attachments. It's possible. Circumstance or nature or whatever. Look at what happened to Dhruva. Look what happened to Dhruva. 6 months. What do you think? It's just a story, right?
No.
Didn't really happen. It's just a story.
It probably happened, but to my point, they probably were born at
Oh, come on.
Ruchi level.
That's your mind. Don't shut that one down and go to the scripture. Take shelter what scripture says. Then rather than yeah, but maybe something. That's just a spin. Waste of time. Misuse. Last question.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I have the question on the table which has spiritual aspiration, material aspiration, meditation.
Yeah.
For Ruchi, in the material aspiration column, that says localized only. What does that mean?
I didn't make the chart, obviously, because I had to edit what was there. Localized, I think I added something. It means that it's sometimes, but not pervasive. Sometimes, and then it disappears, but not pervasive. Because pervasive is before the localized. sometimes in this situation, that situation, there may be some temporary appearance. Then it disappears. Latent. Localized. That's okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I hope you're ready for some elevated topics coming up.